Chapter 4 The Forest of the Sword. After finding the dead guards, Princess Seluca and Lugio walked into the next room, anxious as to what they might find. Lugio looked around and frowned. "It is empty," said the princess. "I don't trust this. Stay behind me, milady," Lugio said, wincing at how his voice echoed through the empty room. The next room was also more empty, except for more bloodstains. King Rileso was nowhere to be found. Lugio studied the blood. "Again, it be Notus, Mitchke, an elf. We need to be careful, He was interrupted by Princess Seluca rushing past him and diving into the underwater tunnel that, knowing blood and Nacha, led to their chapel. "Milady! For goodness sake, she'd be worse than the prince," he thought, diving in after her. He resurfaced at the entrance to the chapel, which was not just underwater, but underground. Also, like the monastery, it was made so that water would not fill it. Princess Seluca was waiting impatiently at the door. "Milady, please think before you act," Lugio said, trying to keep as much of his frustration out of his voice as he could. "I did think," she said. "Bolsico might be in here, so this is where I have gone." He sighed. "Now, as I have said, we need to be careful." So, she threw open the doors and rushed inside. "How did the king and queen raise a girl like this?" he thought, following her. King Rileso was level-headed and cautious from a childhood spent trying not to be everything a child monarch was thought to be, and Queen Mirilla was constantly planning and worrying. Princess Seluca was the opposite of that. She threw herself head-first into everything, when her parents allowed to, and sometimes when they did not, often making decisions without thinking, the complete opposite of them. He guessed it was the same way King Ridero and Queen Silenda had raised a wild boy like Prince Geralt. The princess at least had the decency to move at a respectful place in a chapel, even one so long abandoned, instead going slowly, for once. They searched it for any clues as to what had happened. "Over here!" Princess Seluca called. She was over by one wall, looking at something. Lugio walked over to it and saw a message carved into the wall. He gasped, both due to the contents of the message and the fact that someone would deface this chapel's wall, even if it was old, disused, and possibly demonically infested. The approximate transliteration would be Sretse vrididul ovsksod rsesido aigna ula jthuai rko ols osmjedidnitsi. Spelled correctly, mostly since Quinian spelling was not standardized, it would be Serdesi viridi udvoskod resikod yonka lau jithau kor os sonjedio. Carved text in Quinian was always written with all capital letters and no punctuation. Lugio pulled out a pen, paper, and ink. Princess Seluca pulled back in shock. "You can read?" He sighed. I can." "And you just carry around pens, paper, and ink?" "Aye." Princess Seluca laughed. "Just join the Belladons already." He rolled his eyes. "I'll be sure to tell that to the girl I'll be marrying," he muttered. "You found a girl to marry?" "Be quiet and let me focus," he practically snapped, done with her comments and realizing that Queen Mirilla was more likely to pay him extra for doing this than reprimand him. After several minutes, he was finally able to put together what he thought it said. "If you want your king to live, join the war with the Soledi." Then he frowned. "At least I think that be what it says. This handwriting be terrible, and spelling be not standard, but there be not no one who'd think this is right. But if the threat be not enough, the fact he writes Vosco with his 2 S's tells me everything I need to know." His guess was correct. "What?" Princess Seluca said. "And I write Vosco with 2 S's." "Exactly," he said, almost without thinking. The girl glared at him, but he ignored her. "And why do they want us in this war? Why'd they go through the trouble just for this? And couldn't they get someone literate to write this?" "I do not know, but we have to tell Mosika." He nodded. But be careful." She left before he could finish his sentence. "Why do I even bother anymore?" he thought, following her. The news of what had happened to Linsco nearly sent his siblings out looking for him themselves. All right, said Belasheloso, standing up and rolling up his sleeves like he was getting ready for a fight. Show me where they went. I'd like to have a word with them. Maria nodded. The only people who get to hurt our Binos are us, usually by hugging him too hard. Or me, emotionally, by insulting his height. Thefia sighed, but her eyes were hard and determined. We'll find him, I promise, but let us handle this. She looked up at them. I'm sorry, but it's too dangerous for you. The only weapons you know how to use are farming tools. Belasheloso sighed and sat back down. You're right. He looked her straight in the eyes. But you'd better find him. You bring our Binos home safely. She nodded. I will. Under different circumstances, he might have made a joke about them getting married. Aresho looked like he was about to cry. Why can't Linsco come home? He asked. Piatasica was playing, innocently unaware of what had happened. He'll be fine, Arexacico, said Mirsha. Faria nodded. Don't worry about him. The Fakisa will bring him home safely. All right, Arexo said, but he still sounded unsure. Solazinia frowned. I'm confused, though. Why would the Rosene, or whatever you saw with him, even want him? He's a good fighter, and I guess he knows the princess, but why would they go through the trouble? Especially when the princess was right there. Her frown deepened. Wait, that bow he had. I swear I've seen it before. The shield, too. Thefia blinked, realizing that she and Linsco had neglected to mention that he was the Arexacico. Oh, about that. Solazinia looked up. What? She took a deep breath. They're Quinia and Elinsco. Elinsco is the next Arexacico. Everyone blinked, except Piatasica, who kept playing. Arexo gasped, his eyes wide. Wait, but Solazinia said, frowning again. Now that I think about it, makes sense. Birds don't like him, he don't talk much, and never could keep him away from the pottery. She smiled a bit. Had to start using wood for everything. And his magic is so strong. Belasheloso smiled. So unstable, too. Oh, the messes he made. Maria nodded. We joked about it so much. Why didn't we see it earlier? Mirsha shrugged. Maybe we don't feel like it could happen. Linsco's our friend, our brother, not the holder of a legendary artifact. But if he is the Arexacico, and Princess Silenda's the Gregicica, then, said Belasheloso. Thefia nodded. I think it's already started. Lucian blinked. What has? He looked nervous. The bad things the Dark Lord said were going to happen? Faria nodded. He did, but don't worry about it. Linsco Sigil will stop them. Mia muttered something. Lucian gasped. He will? Like Elinsco is Bombir, and Duke Elinsco the Short? Yes, he will, she said. The next day, they met in Linsco's parents' house. King Ridero spread out a map of Quinia on the table and took out a few pieces to represent the group. Known Rosena camps were marked, and the western part of Ardera was circled, about where the Forest of the Sword was supposed to be. There was a lot of Rosena activity around there, but no one had ever figured out why. What can we remember about what happened? King Ridero asked. There were 2 of them, in cloaks and on horses. I could see Elisigio in a cart being pulled by one of them, said Thefia. She had slept little that night, worried as she was, so she spoke half in dialect. Longue might have joked about how she barely slept if it were not a bad time, and he had actually slept well. She frowned. Wait, I think there was another one, also in the cart. Small. He was wearing a cloak. A child, or just someone short? He asked. She frowned again, struggling to move through the fog of her sleep-deprived mind. I don't know. They were too far away. She yawned. Are you sure you 2 do not want to wait a little? You did not sleep well last night, said Princess Silenda. Longue smiled. Nothing worse than nothing I've dealt with before. Like Thefia, he was also speaking half in dialect. Thefia shook her head, resolute. No, we have to find them. We can't wait no more. I don't think I'll be able to sleep until I know he's safe. All right, said the princess uncertainly. Were they Michki or something else? King Ridero asked. I don't know, said Thefia. He nodded. And they were heading southwest. Ardera, maybe Bereda or Alenia. He frowned and studied the map. Not many camps there. All are fairly rural. They were not somewhere close, so probably Ardara and hard to find, he sighed. Then it will probably not be marked here. He studied the map, and his eyes were drawn to the circled area of Ardara. His frown deepened. It was not confirmed that there was a camp there, but if there were, it would be a good place. It was not too far away and well hidden. Ardara was a good place to disappear to, and no one, except Linsco and Bombir, had been able to find the Forest of the Sword since the Great Jarissa War. Both it and the people within it had disappeared, never to be seen again by anyone, except Linsco and Bombir. I think they have taken Linsco to Western Ardara, possibly the Forest of the Sword if they have found a way in, said King Ridero. Princess Silenda frowned. Are you sure? How? Yes, I am. He explained his reasons. She nodded in agreement. I see. It does make sense. Then we must go. We have lost too much time already, said Queen Silenda. I do not know what they want with him, but it cannot be good. So they left Sillery and began to travel southwest. The journey to Ardara took a few days, and then they spent another 2 searching the western parts of the province for both a Linsco and a church, since the search ran through Agradi. It was possible that looking for a boy who was captured by the Rosette could count as a good cause to miss Glacaria, but they did not want to risk it. Besides, going seemed to ease everyone's anxieties a little. They found a few smaller camps, like outposts, but not Linsco. Lonxeux and Thefia barely slept, growing more worried and exhausted by the day. By Shudyenyeji morning, the only thing keeping them awake was their worry. Finally, they heard a laugh, and a man walked out of the woods. He looked like an elf, about half the size of Princess Silenda or Linsco, with round ears, wild and curly dark green hair, black eyes, scaly bat-like wings at his back, 2 fish-like fins on his arms, and deer-like antlers on his head, along with a purple and yellow jester hat. Princess Silenda blinked. Sio? The man smiled. So you recognize me! How wonderful! There is no one else you could be. Sio spread his arms and shrugged. Well, don't blame me for that. I didn't design you to look so boring. Before Princess Silenda could start monologuing about theology, Thefia said, So you know where to find Arexacico? Where? Why'd they take him? Do they know who he is? How? They do know. As for how they found out, that's quite simple, really, he said. I told them! His tone was matter-of-fact, as if it were obvious how they had found out. Princess Silenda, Thefia, and Lonxeux all stared at him in disbelief, and then Thefia's expression shifted to anger. You did what? She shouted in dialect. Sio nodded. Yes, I always tell Arexacico and his friends who Arexacico is. Honestly, you should expect this by now. Sio called the holders of the Exalari by their titles. The title of Arexacico, or Gregicica, in Vilena's case, was a little ironic considering the Arexacici had all been very large men, or a pirate ship in Sidnio's case, who had once been a very large man. Vilena had managed the great feat of being the same height as Elinsco and the equally great feat of being just as mad about it. Why? Princess Silenda said. Sio grinned. Why do I do anything? Because it's fun! Why, you? Thefia tried to lunge forward and draw her sword, but Lonxeux stopped her. Efonsija, don't make him mad, he said. She sighed and crossed her arms. Anyway, Sio continued, they took him to their camp in the Forest of the Sword. To get in, you have to find a stone marked with the symbol of the Soledi and play Sarola's waltz. He nodded to the princess. Gregicica over there has a harp, so she can do it. Princess Silenda sighed at the added diminutive. Really? I know I am short, but really? Sio smiled. Queen Silenda stared at her daughter. You brought that with you? Do you realize how dangerous that is? How powerful? Especially in your hands. Princess Silenda pulled out her harp, a lovely golden thing, beautiful and ancient. It dated back to Linsco and Queen Silenda the First, who had used it on their quest, and it had the same enchantment as wands and staffs. She shrugged. I want to be able to practice whilst traveling, and I am not good with any weapons. Queen Silenda sighed. All right. King Ridero frowned. His daughter's inability to fight had been a thorn in his side ever since she was a little girl. He had not expected her to become some sort of warrior princess, but he wanted her to at least be able to defend herself. He, Via Silenda, and Lady Quinia had all tried and all failed. She was more interested in learning to decline Adelicite nouns and playing music than in fighting. The closest they ever got was once when she was 13 and had read every book in Linsco's library on the history of sword fighting, and, being the royal castle, it had a lot, instead of sleeping or eating. She would have learned magic if it were not for the Exalaro Gregio making it wild and unpredictable. His son had the opposite problem, being so eager for fighting and adventure that it boiled over into recklessness. "That's all. Once you play that, the entrance will open," Sio said. "I see," the Queen said. "Thank you." He smiled. "Wonderful! Good luck, Ja!" He disappeared in a cloud of smoke and flowers, the jester hat settling on top of them. They searched for the stone and soon found it, a large gray stone, almost like a gravestone, carved with the leaf and spirals of the Serode. Princess Silenda played the waltz, a somber melody that most knew as a hymn tune. Sarola was a Serode mage who fought and died in the Great Jarissa War. A friend of hers had disappeared just before it started, but no one remembered anything else about him, because it was Ellie. Really, it was a miracle she even remembered his existence. As Princess Silenda finished her piece, the symbol glowed, and the same symbol glowed on 2 trees. Beyond them, a mist came to shroud the woods. More of a fog, really, making everything look blue. The princess practically squealed with excitement when she saw this. Then, she remembered the gravity of the situation and became more serious. They stepped through the trees and into the mist, while, unknown to them, someone followed. Linsco fought his captors fiercely, though the only effect it had was making him tired, and, once they had tied him down in the cart, frustrated. Once they stopped, they forced something past his lips, and Linsco felt himself being dragged into sleep. Being Linsco, he had fought that as well, but he had lost. Whenever he woke, he was met with more water and maybe a little food, and then dragged back into sleep. Usually he was not thinking clearly enough to argue, but when he did, he lost. Finally, Linsco woke and groaned. His back and neck were sore, like he had been leaning over for too long. His arms were out behind him, and his shoulders were sore. His head was a little foggy, but at least no one was trying to feed him. "Oh, finally!" Linsco would have jumped in surprise at the harsh voice coming from behind him if he could. He looked up and saw a huge Michka standing there. Michki had heads like cats and thick fur around their necks. Their hands had the same dexterity as an elf's, but with the claws and fur of a cat. Also like a cat, their claws were retractable. Linsco was smaller than most Michki, but that was partly because he was smaller than most elves. Michki had as much variety in their size as elves did, though they were generally a little bigger. They also liked to style their fur, especially the thick fur around their necks and on their cheeks, much like elves with their hair. The Michki's braids were a complicated art, but one could tell a lot about one should he learn to read them. This Michka was a ginger tabby with amber-brown eyes. His fur was short and very neat around his neck. His elaborate braids marked that he was very highly ranked among his people and unmarried. His clothes were crimson and very fine. Getting over his shock and fear and thinking a little clearer, Linsco sat up straight and glared up at the Michka, trying to piece together his memories of the past few days. Now, while the journey to this place has already been told to you, how this mess started has not. During the Rosenes attack, he had been fighting when he was distracted by pears, a line of them, leading up to a small ceramic pot. He had known it was a trap, yet he had still fallen for it. It was theorized that the need to break fragile objects was either a power of or requirement for being the Arexacico, and it would not surprise anyone considering its creator, and pears were just free food. Besides, he had been curious as to what they were doing there. The dangers of greed and curiosity. The Michka smiled, amused. "So you are awake. There were supposed to be 2 of us, but my companion thinks you are too boring. You know, I have heard that you are all small, but I did not think that you would be this small." Linsco made an angry Linsco noise before he could stop himself. His godparents had said many times that he should not let height insults bother him anymore, but he could not. Even though he heard them practically every time Meria and Zebocron spoke to him, he still hated it. The Michka chuckled. "So you can speak, in a way." "Do not." Unfortunately for both of them, Linsco had siblings, so when he found a chance to annoy someone, he took it, especially someone like this Michka. He began shouting. Without words, of course, but he was shouting. The Michka slapped Linsco. "Quiet, boy," he growled. "I am not someone you want to anger." Linsco fell silent, but still glared at him, while his mind raced. What did they want with him? What were they going to do with him? How was he going to escape?